Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady, and Luke Peyton. For this one, we are going to go in depth. We're going to do a full review of all of last weekend's hurling action. We're going to talk about the matches which took place in the Munster Championship. We had 2 and we had 3 games, of course, from the Leinster Hurling Championship for 2023 in round 1. This video, we're going to go in depth on all the key talking points from all 5 of these games. Luke, just in general, what did you make of week 1 of the championship?
Yeah, actually really enjoyed the start of the hurling anyway, particularly Munster anyway. The 2 Munster games I thought were 2 classics, like 2 really good games, like 2 very different games as well. Like we're going to get into it now in a second. Like the Clare Tipp game, very wide open, high scoring as well, whereas Waterford Limerick more of a tight kind of more physical game with less score. So we got a nice variation. And then look, I suppose in Leinster, an interesting start, I suppose in Leinster where particularly maybe Dublin and Antrim drawing kind of created a few narratives there as well, and then Galway starting strong. But yeah, I think Munster really kickstarted the season quite well.
Yeah, and without a doubt, the game to look at from this is this one. Clare 323, Tipperary 5 goals and 22 points. And really, before we get into the in-depth, details of the games, just number one, the quality of this game, the level of quality from both teams in this game blew me away. Like Aidan McCarthy with 113, Jake Morris with 2-4, Jason Ford with 2-6. Like just the level of ability in this game was ridiculous.
Yeah, look, and I suppose there's some fantastic scores in there as well. And but the best part I thought about this as well was that there's a few kind of spills, bit of nerves in there as well, and that like this was like following the league when people were talking about that lack of intensity a little bit as well. And then I think what we really saw in this game was the nerves and poor Eamon Foodie in goal for Clare that was probably the victim of it as well, and the Clare full back line as well that just had a torrid day. And look, I think there were so many incidents to discuss in this game as well. It was just it had everything in there as well, and this was kind of what we'd been missing all season, was the trills and the spills as well. So, and that's just the thing, is that like for a neutral watching on as a spectator, where you get a game with unbelievable quality and you get a few errors in there thrown in as well, it just makes for fantastic entertainment.
Oh, without doubt. And just before we do carry on into the game analysis, Tipperary, of course, raised a few eyebrows with their match program. Me personally, I said it on the run through. I don't like it. No real particular reason. I just really like the GAA layout of the iconic jerseys on GAA teams. Like the centre half back, the number 6 is an iconic jersey. The number 8, the midfielder, is an iconic jersey. The number 14 is an iconic jersey. I don't like seeing Jason Ford wearing number 7. I don't like seeing the fullback Ronan Marr wearing number 12. Like, I don't know. Where's your stance on this?
Yeah, no, I'm agreed. I don't like it either. I think, look, I see why it happens, but Tipperary are the only team that have done this. Like, I think going forward and kind of based on the bit of backlash they got, I saw Liam Cahill's interview before, and he said they're going to try to come up with a solution to make sure this doesn't happen again. And look, personally, I just hope it happens as well. And like you said, Jason Ford wearing 7 just seems to be that seems like a crime. I don't know. It just looks wrong. And then you see Connor Bowe coming on as well wearing number 3. It just doesn't look right. And for whatever reason, it's mostly looking aesthetic thing. At the end of the day, it doesn't impact anything. It's just an aesthetic thing. And like for fans as well, I think that image of the program that was taken where the team wasn't even laid out, it was just a list of squad numbers 1 to 26. Like, I don't know. I hope we don't get to that stage where teams are just laid out like that, and then before the game, we're just getting a list of 26 players. Because I like that buzz of midweek as well, when I'm looking forward to watching a match, that you see the players lined out in their positions. Whereas with Tipp, like on Friday morning when all the other teams were announced, we just got that panel 1 to 26 with players all in random numbers with no way of knowing where they'd be. And yeah, the team comes out on Friday night as well, but it's nice to get that bit of a buzz as well, a bit of excitement building up to a championship game at the weekend. So look, hopefully we can take Cahill's word and that they come up with a solution to make sure that they can lay out the teams in a bit of a better manner going forward.
Agreed. I hope that this is just a temporary thing. I hope it doesn't stick around. It's not something that I am a fan of personally. So let's get into the game itself. So no doubt Tipperary got off to a blinder of a start. They were fantastic right out of the gate. In the 12th minute, Jason Ford hit a sideline cut, which ended up in the back of the Clare net. In the 17th minute, Tipp got their second goal. Jake Morris pickpocketed poor Eamon Fowdy and put it into the back of the Clare net once again. And then in the 23rd minute, Jake Morris got his second goal, Tipp turning over a short Clare puck out. And I have to say, particularly after Morris's second goal, there was a real sense that Tipp could blow Clare away.
Yeah, and then and you could nearly say, well, but you could definitely say that all three of those goals were completely avoidable from Clare. Like the sideline, I think there's a dispute. I think personally my feeling is that, look, the keeper should be dealing with that because Cleary has John McGrath up there trying to get a stick in, and as the fullback, he has to just wrestle him out of the way. And then I think the goalie has to come and make a claim on that as well. He knows that Cleary likes to wrestle with the fullback, with the full forward, and that the keeper has to be coming for that one. Then the second one, I think maybe Cleary and the rest of the fullback line could have given Fowdy a bit more help for like when he's coming out with the ball, but then he doesn't see anything ahead of him, takes too much out of it, and then Morris buries to an empty net. And then, look, the third goal, it's the puck out as well. Too high for John Conlon, who should still probably have enough time to take it down. But there was just seemed to be that bit of panic in the Clare backline. And I think all three of those goals, Lohan would be going absolutely furious over as well. And that was the other thing as well. He seemed to be really agitating the line himself. I haven't seen Lohan as wound up on the sideline in a long time as well. So I think Clare were really rattled. There was that sense of nerviness about them as well in the first half, that they started a bit shaky. I think they were probably unnerved about that sideline going in. But then they did finish strongly in the half. I think it was two moments of kind of magic from Mark Rogers, really, that I know he was helped for the second goal by McCarthy. But that first goal he scored, he did it all by himself. High catch, turn, rifle at the back of the net as well. That really gave the game a lot of life. And the fact that, look, Tipp only went in 4 points up at halftime, despite all those Clare mistakes, the fact that they made all of those mistakes and still were in the game at halftime, with going the second half of the wind, was really remarkable, really, and set it up quite nicely for the second half.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. And in that second half, Tipp exploded onto the blocks again. Jason Ford tucking away a 38-minute penalty on a weekend where a lot of penalties were missed. And we're going to get into, those in later games. Mark Keogh and Sean Ryan came off the bench. They made a big impact. Sean Ryan scored Tipp's fifth goal with his first ever touch in championship hurling. Not a bad start to his Tipperary Inter-County Championship career. Obviously, Clare fought back. Obviously, we knew they were going to. But Tipperary, particularly at the end, even though Aidan McCarthy got that last-minute goal, which, was too little too late, for Clare, look, they scored 323. Aidan McCarthy was outstanding with 113. But Tony Kelly only scored a point. And Cathal Barrett, once again, like you're talking here, Brian O'Mara's amazing steal on Shane O'Donnell at the end. Like Cathal Barrett's job on Tony Kelly. I think it's bizarre, absolutely bizarre, that we have a situation where Tipp conceded 323, yet still some of the defenders had fantastic games.
Yeah, I think Barrett was the pick of them as well. That there was talk that Tony Kelly was carrying a bit of an ankle injury coming in as well. But Kelly had no impact on the game really at all, to be honest. I think he had a bit of an involvement for the two goals, you could maybe say, but I don't think he was completely kind of off it a bit. And there's a bit of talk about is he playing the right position at the moment this year for Clare too? So he just didn't look fully right, I think, on the day. But Barrett did a really, really good job on him and took care of business there as well. I thought he was brilliant throughout. Definitely Tipp's best defender anyway in the day. I would be a little bit concerned about Michael Breen. I think this was his shakiest performance in fullback, since he moved back. I think he probably should have done better for the Rogers goal. And then when Shanaher came on as well, Shanaher plucked an awful lot of ball over him too. The Shanaher looked like he was going to cause all sorts of problems, and he did set up that McCarthy goal. So I think going forward, that could be a little bit of a concern for Tipp, and I wouldn't be surprised that maybe going forward that they might end up moving Brian O'Mara back to fullback and Breen might go out to wing back, I think, as well, because I think that's probably the little bit of a concern that with the way that Barrett was coming out onto Tony Kelly, it was often a two-man full back line of Johnny Ryan and Breen, which is a very new full back line. and that was probably maybe the little bit of area that I felt they could be slightly exposed and could potentially be exposed going forward.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Obviously now Clare go away to Limerick, which is an absolutely perilous trip to make, and like all of a sudden it's a crazy one to look at, that a team this talented is already in trouble.
Yeah, look, and I think I think it's nearly a must win like that. Yeah, they'll still have to face Cork and Waterford. I think after seeing at the weekend, we'll get into a second. Waterford look an awful lot better than what people probably were expecting from them as well. I know they'll be without the Burka going forward, but like all of a sudden those are tough games now as well. Like Cork, we knew were already considered one of the favourites to come out of Munster too. So I think going in just for security, they need to really come out. And I think we'll get into it again now in a second about Limerick, is that Limerick are probably going to be without Declan Hannon. I'd say they'll be without Seamus Flanagan as well, because I think he'll be suspended for the game.
Hegarty.
Hegarty I think is fine with the 2 yellows rule. That I think he's all right to play, but I think based on that, I think Clare need to go in next week as well. But like, there's some big questions ahead of them as well, because Tony Kelly doesn't look fit at all. He looks to be really hampered by that injury on his ankle. Brian Taylor looked to have limped off in the last few minutes, and he was arguably one of their best players of the day too. So yeah, I'd be a little bit concerned from a Clare perspective. And then I think the big question for them next week is, do they stick or twist with Foodie in goal? Do they go back to Eibhear Quilligan? And then the other one, like Rory Hayes, probably has to come back in too. So these are a few issues kind of look ahead of Clare. And they just a few players just don't look to be performing. Like Peter Duggan looks to have gone backwards a little bit too. And I suppose even players like Diarmuid Ryan not kicking on to the same level that he was a couple of years ago too. So him, Cathal Malone, those type of players, there's going to be questions about whether they can retain their place, or do some of those newer, younger players come in like Shane Meehan, or, well, like I suppose we all know Shanahan, but the impact he made, does he come in next week for Limerick too? So that's, must win for Clare next week, I think. And it'd be interesting to see if they can bounce back, or if they're a bit shell-shocked by this performance.
Well, there's no doubt it's an absolutely huge task for them to go away to the home of the 3-in-a-row All-Ireland champions and to get a victory. My last thing that I'll say to you is, where do you think Tipp are at? I mean, they've had a pretty good league, and now, victory on the first day. Like, how high do you actually rank them right now? Still without players that really impressed us as well throughout. Like, no Conor Stakelum today, no Jerome Cahill. Players that, really, really impressed us throughout the club championship. They actually put Tipperary right now.
Yeah, I think, look, I'd be impressed with them. I would be impressed with them. And like, they're doing it this year without Craig Morgan, without Barry Heffron, and these players as well. Like, and that Ger Brown is another one too. So I think look, they're pretty early into the Liam Cahill era. They're still doing really, really well, like already without those players too. They're still early into their philosophy too. And I think a lot of people probably maybe overreacted, I think, to that Limerick result in the league semi-final as well, and that they saw that performance where Limerick won quite comfortably and then said that Tipperary are a long way off. I still think Tipperary are the second best team in Munster here. And look, I think later on in the championship, I think that they're going to run Limerick an awful lot closer than they did in that league semi-final. I think they'll probably take some lessons from what Waterford did against Limerick successfully, and they'll apply those to them as well. They'll have learned a lot of that from that game themselves. That's Limerick playing their style. They've got to look at that now, and then they'll come and adapt to that too. So I think they're the best placed team in Munster anyway to overturn Limerick right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I can't wait to see them lock horns, because people are forgetting 2019 before, 2021 before Limerick put the burst on in the second half and really blew Limerick away. Blew Tipperary away. Limerick were on the ropes. Like, Tipperary had them. Jason Ford was playing a blinder at centre forward. Tipp just ran out of steam in the second half and got completely blown away by the Limerick momentum. I'm like, now, like, if they can do that for 70 minutes, obviously it's way easier said than done. But I do think that they actually do have the players to go toe-to-toe with Limerick. And it's no doubt that with Cahill bringing in the likes of Alan Tynan, Garrod O'Connor and playing Seamus Kennedy at wing forward. Like, he's preparing this side to go and beat Limerick, because if you want to win the All-Ireland, you have to beat Limerick. It's as simple as that. So, yeah, speaking of Limerick, they got their campaign off to a winning start, beating Waterford by a goal in 18 to 19 points. But, Luke, I think it's fair to say Waterford let this one pass them by. An opportunity to beat the champions does not come by often, and I feel like they may have let this one slip.
Yeah, no, that was my impression as well. I thought they did leave this one behind them, and that, like, it's a very rare situation where you're going to have an extra man in Limerick for maybe last 25 minutes, you could say, and well, nearly half an hour actually, you can even say. And the fact that Limerick miss a penalty, they only score 1 goal and 18 points, like, with all these factors as well, it must be a bit of a sickener, I think, for Waterford and Davy Fitz that they didn't come out on top here. So yeah, look, I think they will be slightly disappointed. I think the wides did kill them, and that just a key moments. I think that, look, Desi Hutchinson hit a bad wide with about 2 minutes left to go. That goes over, would have brought them back to a point. And then with the way the form was going at the time, and all the momentum, you would have backed them to win it and get a chance at the score at the end there as well. So yeah, I think just scores like that as well. Paddy Fitzgerald missed a few scores as well when he came on too. So yeah, look, I think they will be disappointed, but from a performance perspective, I think Waterford will be delighted. And I think the really interesting part here is that I think they laid out a blueprint on how to play against Limerick quite successfully. And I think that they're tactically, to be fair to Davy Fitz here, that I think that's the best tactical approach I've seen against Limerick. And just unfortunately for Waterford, they just didn't really have enough scoring forwards at the end to punish them as well. But I think from the Waterford management team perspective, I think they got their tactics absolutely spot on, and it's the best job I've seen of a team slowing down and frustrating Limerick, because I think, look, Limerick really I think Limerick found it very, very frustrating playing against them.
Agreed. And you watch it, the treatment that Barry Nash got throughout the game. Like, they were really focused on stopping his runs for sure. And the puckouts as well. They really targeted Nicky Quaid from the puckouts. And just all in all, they just stalled up Limerick's game, didn't let them do what Limerick usually do. And I think one of the key areas where I think they actually did get it wrong was when Hegarty got sent off. They brought on Austin Gleeson and they started firing kind of long, high ball in towards Gleeson, because I thought that they were hurting Limerick more. It was pointed out by Shane Dowling on the Sunday game, and I completely agree with him. I thought they were hurting Limerick more when they were running straight at them. And you think about the 2 goals that they got in the Munster Championship game against Limerick last year, the second one, especially from Jack Prendergast, like, that came from moving the ball through the hands, running at Limerick. And when they went back to it then, after Limerick rattled off 4 points in a row after the red card, like, Waterford outscored Limerick 6 points to 2 when they went back to running at them. Like, do you think that was the area where they potentially lost the game? Now, I know hindsight is a wonderful thing, and if they had thrown Austin Gleeson in and he hit the back of the net, we would have said, what a great decision. But do you think they could have maybe stuck with what they were doing so well?
Yeah, they perhaps could have as well with the extra man, I think, and with with the runners through the middle. I think they had particular joy when once Declan Hannon went off as well, as that was a huge impact. That Limerick did seem a little bit unnerved without having him in centre half back, and like that again, that'll be interesting seeing for going forward the next couple of weeks. Like, because I'd imagine, well, I'm not sure what's the injury that he actually went off. It was hard to tell what he actually went off with, but if he's out for a while, that's a huge loss as well. But I think it's a fair point that they did get a little bit of joy out of as well. Look, to be fair, Austin Gleeson had that score that he kicked as well that was ruled out for, frankly, a ridiculous decision as well. So he did get some joy in there as well. And I did think that Gleeson was brilliant when he came on as well for those 20 minutes. I thought he was really, really good. And then it was another chance for Fitzgerald as well at the end. He set up for a goal shot as well that went just wide. So I think that, yeah, they could have kept going with that as well, but there was nearly always this air that Limerick were just about going to hang on as well for whatever reason, that it just seemed to be that they were just going to have enough to hold them off. But I think the interesting point here is that I think how they nullified Keane Lynch was the biggest thing I took from it as well, was that Calum Lyons went on and look, he took Lynch out of the game entirely, and that, look, they said they were going to play with an extra defender, and yeah, the Burke started as the sweeper, and then they moved around. Jack Fagan went there as well, and Tom Barron went out onto Hegarty, but it just worked for them very, very well. And I think for next week, Clare might be looking at that as well, that maybe they'll say to John Conlon, you sit in the pocket, and we'll get somebody like maybe Carl Malone will come back and sit in Lynch or something like that as well. But it was the best I've seen them do it. And they just said as well, we're not letting Barry Nash get on the ball here as well. That when it came to puckouts, Sean Finn was left entirely free. You can puck it out to Sean Finn all you want and say to Sean Finn, you go ahead and hurt us there as well. And look, I don't know how it hasn't happened before at intercounty level, where teams have just not said, you're hitting it to Sean Finn, you were keeping it away from Barry Nash, who's your best distributor defensively. Just give it to Sean Finn every single time, and that's what happened. And to be honest, look, they turned them over a lot more than Limerick are used to, and Limerick just looked a bit shook as well. If you go through the Limerick players who actually really stood out as a really good performer on the day, can't think of that many from the Limerick perspective. You can maybe say Tom Morrissey, I think, was probably their best in the day, but like beyond that, can't really think of too many that played to the best of their ability. They definitely seemed unnerved by it, and I think a lot of managers be sitting up and thinking like there's a lot we can take from this as well. But then at the same time, you'd back that Kinnerk will be looking at this as well, and he'll be pretty confident in being able to fix them too.
Well, that's exactly it. If anybody can fix it, it's John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk. Like the managerial master classes that they have put on over the last few years has been unparalleled. But definitely for Tipperary, for Clare, for Cork, sit up and study the hell out of that game, because here's the thing. Limerick looked beatable in that game. They looked beatable. And particularly in the All-Ireland final of 2021, they looked unbeatable. So it's like it's definitely an improvement on what we've seen over the last couple of years. But one thing that was unfortunate in this game, again, a feature of the game, was the discipline. Multiple, moments where players did let themselves down. You think of the Seamus Flanagan shoulder on Stephen Bennett that caught him right across the jaw. Like, he's lucky to not get a red card for that. On top of that as well, the Garrod Hegarty red card, like that's just a big hit on Conor Gleeson. And then obviously a Waterford member of the backroom team coming out and hitting Garrod Hegarty and getting sent off. Like, that's ridiculous carry on. Like, and I've made the point earlier, Davy Fitz should boo him off his backroom team straight away, unless he's absolutely the best member of the backroom team. Like, but that's a ridiculous carry on. And then on top of that as well, I don't know if you've seen this, nobody will really talk about this, but just an example of bad sportsmanship. If you go and watch the end of the game, I think it was the Limerick number 18 just screamed in the face of Stephen Bennett, who's on the ground when the game is blown up. So the referee blows the full-time whistle and he goes down and roars in Stephen Bennett's face after the game is over and Limerick have won. Just a real bad winner type of attitude. Like, there were some moments in this game that weren't the nicest to see.
Yeah, look, and look at the risk of just seeming one-sided with the instance here as well a bit. Look, I thought Stephen Bennett got some pretty harsh treatment throughout. Look, I think look, that was Mike Casey at the end. I think that I saw the incident as well myself, and it wasn't great, to be honest now as well. Did you like to think that when the full-time whistle goes that there wouldn't be that sort of thing as well? Like, in the game, you can understand it, fair enough, but afterwards it should be done. But like, I think Flanagan, I think I said this a little bit earlier, Flanagan should have been sent off for that. Like, everybody's saying it was kind of that it was an accidental kind of thing. I thought he lifted the elbow a little bit, that when you look at the slow down footage of it as well, you can see that the elbow was raised into the head a little bit as well. So I thought he was very, very fortunate to stay on. And I think the team this year has been the retrospective bans. I'd be shocked if he's not out for Clare next week as well, because it was contact with the elbow to the head. So look, I'd be shocked if he's still if he's
Is available. It Limerick though? Is it Limerick? Like, is it them? Because let's be honest, like, when the All-Ireland champions are as good as they are, everybody wants to see them fall. It's like a thing of when a team wins too much, then you want them to lose. Like, is this just because Limerick are the champions? Is this just because Limerick are the best team in the country that everybody's looking for a way to kind of get at them? And are people making more of the Limerick incidents than they are of other teams? Or are Limerick actually being more aggressive than other teams?
Yeah, well, look, I think naturally they're more aggressive than other teams, but like aggressive in a good manner as well. That they have to be aggressive to be as good as they are as well. But like, I think they've got it away. There's been a few decisions in previous years. You think about the Galan decision a couple of years ago in the Tipperary, the Munster final that they got away with, and that one's well. But then they were harshly treated with the Hegarty one before that too. So look, they are the most aggressive team in the country by a mile, but that's not a negative. That's a positive. That's a positive feature of their game as well. It's when they overstep the line. And like just going on this weekend, personally, I felt they should have had 3 red cards. I felt that Flanagan should have went. I think Hegarty, that was the right decision for him to go. And I don't know how Barry Nash managed to stay in the field. For originally there was the tap down on the helmet, which itself was like a strike. Well, a slight strike on the top of the helmet anyway. So yellow card's fair enough. But he had at least 3 or 4 fouls after that as well. So look, I think they're very fortunate that the 3 of them weren't sent off this weekend. And yeah, look, I think they have to play on the edge. Limerick, that's just the way they are. That's just how they play. And yeah, I still think that they back themselves, even if they get down to 14. You saw they got down to 14 and they still won there at the weekend. But like just going on the instance this weekend, I thought that they probably should have had 3 sent off. Obviously, the Waterford mentor as well, but the Waterford mentor being sent off is going to have no impact on the game whatsoever as well. I don't really think there was anyone on the Waterford sideline. Maybe you could say Caleb Lyons could have got a second yellow for a pull down towards the end. I thought he was fortunate for that one too. But yeah, no, I just think their discipline was probably a little bit questionable, I think, at the weekend as well. But yeah, look, they will be interested to see if what happens with Flanagan, because I think that could be the one that the CCC will have a look at.
Agreed. I think that they need to kind of look at reeling it in potentially a tiny bit, because I do think, now that they have the reputation, I think they could really get caught in a big game, a semi-final or a final, with a Garrod Hegarty or a Keane Lynch or a Kyle Hayes getting sent off. If one of those lads gets sent off in an All-Ireland final or an All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary, Kilkenny, Galway, I think it could really, really cost them. So I think, like John Kiley, just tell them to play on the edge, but don't tip over. And sometimes they have tipped over. You think about Kyle Hayes giving the whack of the hurl against, I believe, in the league, like things like that, where they have just lost their cool. Just try and reel that in a bit more. They are the best team in the country. Everybody's going to try rile them up. Don't show that weakness as much as you can. But they still got the victory against Waterford, which speaks to just how much of a champion's mindset they have, that they win even when they play nowhere near their best. We're going to move over then to the Leinster Championship, and we're going to talk about the game which I feel has the most significance. Galway 24 points, Wexford 2 goals and 12. So 2 of the big 4, if you like, from the Leinster Championship over the last number of years. And Evan Nyland really leading the way for Galway, 13 points from him. They bounced back from a rapid Wexford start to cruise to a comfortable victory. Wexford, Luke, had 2 goals in the first 4 minutes. One from a Conor MacDonald flick, the other from a neat Liam Ode McGovern finish. But they let it slip.
Yeah, well, look, I think it was probably an unfair reflection on the start of that game. Those 2 goals that they were 2 goals probably completely against the run of play. The first one, like Garage McInerney, absolutely throughout the game, I think he absolutely cleaned out Conor MacDonald, and I thought he gave an absolute exhibition of fullback on top of him. Really, really, really good performance from McInerney. Whatever happened, he just ended up in his arse anyway, and MacDonald got onto it and scored. Pulling the ball and scored anyway as well. And then a minute later, Jack Grealish comes out with the ball, and look, to call a spade, he was fouled by Rory O'Connor, but ref plays it on anyway as well. And the ball ends up with Liam McGovern putting it in the back of the net, and then before you know it's 2 goals in the space of 2 or 3 minutes. And look, I think that's probably all that went right for Wexford. Well, the only other thing that went right for Wexford on the day. I think other than that, they were probably completely outplayed on the day. I thought Galway were definitely the better side, and to be honest, I think 6 points probably is a generous enough margin for Wexford. I thought that it was probably about a 10-point game in the end, and that Galway never really looked even coming up to half time. It was still an even game. I think Wexford actually went in 1 up at half time, but Galway had been doing all the hurling really, and you just knew they had a very powerful third quarter as well, and they just came out after half time and just completely took over the game. Wexford couldn't get the scores. They missed Leach in an awful lot, missed Damien Reck an awful lot as well, and job done for Galway, and I think they'll be happy enough, Galway. I think they showed a little bit, but at the same time, plenty of room for improvement for them as well. But the same thing is for them. They know in Leinster they don't need to be peaking right now. They're only at the start of their season, and they know they can kind of ease their way through Leinster. They've won that game against Wexford now as well, so they've pretty much confirmed, you could say, with the way the fixtures are going to go from now on as well. They still have Antrim, Westmeath, Dublin don't look as good as what they have been in previous years. Like, I think after that result, Galway probably know that they're already through to the All-Ireland stage now.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. Unfortunately, we'll get to the Dublin Antrim game, but as you said, don't look as strong as we have in previous years. I think the key stage of this game was from half Galway 11 points, Wexford 10, and the 40 points. Wexford 2 goals and 6. So in a period where Galway hit 9 points, Wexford hit 1 point, and that was basically inside the third quarter after the restart. So basically in that period, Galway just completely took over. For Wexford, like, do you see them being able to bounce back? Like we've seen them do it in previous years. Obviously last year, that miraculous victory in Nolan Park against Kilkenny, saving their championship and knocking Dublin out in the process. Like, have they got another trick like that up their sleeve, or has their time run out?
No, look, I think this year, I think I still would be, I'd still be optimistic as a Wexford fan as well. I think they'll probably take a lot of heart looking at that Dublin Antrim score. That's probably a good result for them, I'd say as well. That look, they know next week that they've Antrim, but they've Antrim in Wexford as well, and Antrim away from home are a different prospect to Antrim up in Corrigan Park. So, look, I think next week they'll be targeting that result that result next week as well. They'll be hoping that Lee Chin's back to fully fitness. If they've Lee Chin back next week, you'd have to say that you'd fancy them as well. If they don't, look, Antrim will give them a good test, but I still think regardless, Wexford will come out and top at home against Antrim next week. And with that, then look, I think they're in a good position. I think Galway didn't beat them by too much as well. It was only a 6-point margin as well. I think Galway are going to beat other teams by a lot more than 6 points. So I don't think it's too much of a concern for Wexford at all really here as well. If they can get Damien Reck back in, if they can get Lee Chin back in as well, I think they're on the right enough kind of track as well to get out of Leinster, because their season, I think, will probably be judged on that game against Dublin and Croke Park in the third round of fixtures. I think that's the big game in Leinster for them as well. Obviously, next week is huge for them too as well. If they can get the job done there, and then if they beat Dublin, I'd still be backing them to come out of it. Well, that should confirm their exit from Leinster anyway into the All-Ireland stage. So, look, from their perspective, I wouldn't be too concerned. I thought they hurled pretty well in the first half. They managed to stick with Galway and actually went in a little bit of a lead, but like, I think they need Lee Chin back. And look, personally, I'm not a big fan of the Rory O'Connor acting as a sweeper. I think he's a lethal forward, and I'd rather have him in the forward line rather than his own half. I think, yeah, he's nice to link in the play, but you can get so much more out of him than what you're getting currently. So, a few little tweaks from Wexford, and I'd expect them to get out of Leinster. But I will say, like, if they do get out of Leinster, they're not going any further than an All-Ireland quarter-final, in my opinion, this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. I think they'll get out of Leinster, but I don't think they'll go any further. And I think they should move Rory O'Connor back into the full forward line where he is at his most dangerous. So we're going to move then to Antrim against Dublin in Corrigan Park, Belfast, to finish Antrim 119, Dublin 119. We know that Corrigan Park is a dangerous place to go. It proved to be that once again, Dublin needing a 75th minute equaliser from Keane O'Sullivan to snatch a draw. I have to say, honestly, like this is a pretty disheartening result. Look, I know Corrigan Park is a very tough place to go, but if we're not beating Antrim up there, in my opinion, we've no chance of beating a Kilkenny, a Galway, let alone Limerick.
Yeah, well, look, I think this Dublin team is in transition, and I think with Mihal, it's going to be very much be a few year project, and that I don't think to expect instant results here as well. Some of the older players like Danny Sutcliffe, he's starting to look old, and he's not the player that he was. So, and I think this is just it's the emergence of the new era, and I think it's just going to require a lot of patience from Dublin, and that if they don't get out of Leinster this year, I'm not fully expecting them to as well. And I think it's about just they have a very good under-20 side this year. They've done very, very well with wins against Wexford and Galway. You see Paddy Doyle's coming in starting, Mark Rogan's coming in as well. If they can ever get Dara Purcell fit, Eddie Gibbons in as well. There's some really good young players coming in. And Keane O'Sullivan's not that young, but he's new enough on the scene as well. This is what Dublin have to be building around. Just get these guys the exposure and get them into established inter-county hurlers. But I think just it's fair to say that not to expect any miracles in Leinster this year as well. And I don't think we can, as Dublin fans, be expecting them to be competing for Leinster titles this year. And to be honest, you see as well Darren Gleeson's reaction as well, and the Antrim reaction. They're disappointed they didn't win this game, and to be honest, they probably should have. When you look at the scoreline, I think it was 116-13 at about 50 minutes. They probably should have won it as well. Donald Burke scored a late goal as well, even to get it back to that stage as well. So I think Antrim probably left it behind them, and barring a pretty amazing performance from Keane O'Sullivan, they probably would have done it.
I agree. I think that they really left that one behind them, Antrim. That was as good a chance as they're going to get, in my opinion, in the Leinster Championship this year to beat one of the big four. As I said at the start, the teams that have been ever present in the Leinster Championship, that was as good a chance as they're going to get this year. Wexford away from home, I don't see them winning that, and then I don't see them beating Kilkenny or Galway, unfortunately. But yeah, I think they were fantastic. James McNaughton got their goal in the 7th minute. And yeah, just outstanding performances again from the usual suspects, I think it's fair to say at this stage for Antrim.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Elliott in goal, really, really good. Dublin probably botched an awful lot of goal chances, but he made some really, really good saves. They have some really good players as well. I think Michael Bradley in midfield played very, very well. Colby Cunning as well. He seems to be a pretty good marksman up there as well, and 8 points I think he got at the weekend. And then they've some really solid players in there as well, like Jared Walsh as well at wing back, Paddy Burke coming from the corner too. They've a really good side, really, really well coached, and up there in Corrigan Park, they're a huge challenge up there as well. And hopefully they can, because their away form in the Leinster Championship has been pretty patchy. They've been a different team previously, home and away, I suppose, as well. And even when they've gone down to play the likes of Laois previously down in Laois, they just haven't been able to deliver the same performances. So I think Darren Gleeson will be very, very keen to deliver the same performance down at Wexford Park next week, because if they've let this slip again against Dublin, win a game where they should have won, and then they don't follow it up with a good performance next week, it'll be very disappointing and kind of a missed opportunity to take that step forward as well, because they do look on the verge of breaking through at the moment. So I think if obviously from a Dublin perspective, you're hoping to win these games as well, but would love to see Antrim one day get that position as the third place team in Leinster and get their hard work paying off as well, because they're absolutely going the right way and they play some great stuff.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. So yeah, we're going to move to the last game then, which happened in hurling over the weekend, and it's one that I think we can take the least from, to be honest. Kilkenny 29 points, Westmeath 7 points, 22 point victory for Kilkenny in the opening of their Leinster defence. They're going for 4 Leinster titles in a row, by the way. And for Westmeath, just completely dominated. I don't really know what you can say. TJ Reid on his own scored more than them. He got 9 points, 5 of them from frees. Westmeath only managed 4 points from play in the entire game, and they never led. It's just a complete mismatch, this was.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think it's going to be another tough year for Westmeath. I think you saw them in the they had a really tough National League. They did grind out the result to stay in it as well. But I would fear for them as well that the Antrim game is probably the one that they're eyeing to be competitive, really competitive in. Although look, Dublin aren't shooting the lights out, but I still think that Dublin next week in Parnell should probably beat them by 10 plus. So yeah, look, I think it could be a tough season for Westmeath. To briefly touch on Kilkenny, like you said, can't really take an all off this as well. They'll just be happy they've got a full game into TJ Reid, who seemingly played very, very well. Like obviously we're not being on televised, we're going off match reports here as well. But he seemingly played very well, looks sharp. Adrian Mullen looks to be in flying form again. He's 6 from playing, and they could even take him off early enough as well to rest him. So yeah, I think he's a player that could be absolutely huge this year as well. And if they go on a run as well, he'd be my dark horse tip for hurler of the year this year. He just looks to be absolutely flying, and just his physical fitness as well. He's got so much bigger too as well that I think he could be absolutely massive this year. Other than that, like Timmy Clifford seems to be breaking into the team as well. He looks a good prospect. Billy Drenham's out injured as well. So they've all those players to come back in as well. Interesting to know. I'd just be a little bit unsure about what they're going to do in midfield. They went Dara Corcoran and Paddy Mullen this week as well, but Mullen was taken off fairly soon on as well. But they just seem to be chopping and changing midfield an awful lot as well. That's a complete change from the league final midfield partnership, and just that's the only part of this team that I can't see. I've no clue who they're going to end up in midfield, and to be honest, I don't think Derek Ling's fully sure either as well. But other than that, look, positive enough signs for Kilkenny, and like I was saying about Galway earlier, that they're probably going to be able to ease their way into the league, and they can ease their way into the championship, and that they can use the Leinster as a chance they can trial a few more things as well, because realistically they know that they can try a few things out and they'll still be beating Dublin, they'll still be beating Antrim, and Wexford have had a bit of a hoodoo on them, but I think they're a long way ahead of Wexford this year too. So look, based on this, 2 clear favourites in Leinster, and I think Kilkenny and Galway are going to be slugging it out for top 2, whereas Munster seems to be a lot harder to call.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. So, guys, that is the in-depth Play On GAA roundup of all the hurling action from the weekend. We appreciate you giving us your time here today. And until the next one, guys, take care.